Why make a boring corset when you can make the most fabulous corset ever? Custom dyed, dripping with lace, covered in decorative but functional flossing. Is it even a question? This thing is incredible and curvy and perfect for that turn of the century silhouette. And I'll let you into a little secret. Somehow, throughout this process, we're gonna figure out how to turn Darth Vader's face into a potato. What does that have to do with Edwardian corsets? You'll have to watch the video to find out. She's got the tie-dye t-shirt on. That can only mean one thing. We're gonna do some fabric dyeing. This is 1 yard of cotton sateen. We're not using the standard Dharma Trading fiber reactive dyes for this. Instead, I'm going to use up some old dye that I have, this Procyon MX dye. This is Jacquard's more expensive fiber reactive dyes. How much more expensive is it? Well, price tag is still on it. It was $5. I purchased this in 2014 when the dollar was much more valuable, and this is only 2/3 of an ounce versus the full 2 ounce dyes that you buy at Dharma for less than $5. Years ago when I was making my mullet stays, I did a test dye with this color and it came out like this. I don't know how much dye I actually used for this. Hopefully I have enough dye for a whole yard of fabric, but unfortunately because this isn't Dharma's fiber reactive dye, we don't have that nice precise dye estimator that they have, so I'm gonna have to do the math. Math, very boring. Jacquard's website, no help. And for reasons you'll see in a minute, not worth lingering over, so let's patch up this dye and move on with our lives. Also, how gross and clumpy is this dye? Ew. 5 minutes and a tablespoon of urea later, we're ready to add our fabric. Not what I wanted. I mean, it's barely giving color at all. It's even lighter than the original sample, and I used twice as much as I thought I needed. Just for comparison, here's actual white fabric, and here's what I dyed. Like, that's not the color I wanted. I wanted this color. It's definitely giving the same shade, but it's way too light for what I want. I've already invested heavily into this project and I was quite reluctant to spend any more, but I've already invested a lot in this project and I don't want to spend all of the time and the money and the effort and in the long run have something I'm not happy with. So I bit the bullet, I bought more dye. Here we are, here's the finished product. Looks pretty good. It's maybe a tad darker than I wanted, but I like it, we're gonna use it. Time to cut everything out. I have a whole 2 yards of white coutil somewhere in this apartment, but it's hiding. So we're going to have to eke out the pieces from this wonky cut of coutil left over from my friend's wedding dress. Robin, you saved the day. One of the great things about drawing your own seam allowances on the corset is that you control the size of them. The tops will only get a 1/4 inch because they'll get cut off when everything's fit, but the sides will get larger allowances so we can fit. I picked the 1900's mid-bust corset from the Underpinnings Museum on a recommendation from a friend. Because I have a very large cup size, the standard underbust or just slightly not underbust corsets that were typical of this period were just not gonna work for me. Note that since I purchased this pattern, they've changed to a completely different Etsy shop, and now this corset pattern is 40% more expensive than it was in November. I have a problem with this. The pattern hasn't changed. We've already gone through the pattern modification and fitting process, so if you want to know how I did that, please check out the video linked below. Now to prep the center backs for grommets. These external channels will house spring steel. There's a very strict order of operations for these pieces if you want them to be alterable later, so bear with me. Now inner lining and fashion fabric go right sides together. Then sew the center back, flip open and press. Next, flip so wrong sides are together and give it another press, creating a nice, crisp, finished center back edge. Then sew the other boning channels. Now we can mark for our grommets. Yes, this lacing guide is linked in the description. It's important to note that with these later waist-reducing corsets, you want to make sure your grommets are no more than 3/4 of an inch apart. I prefer using size 00 grommets as well, which are the smaller standard size. Hello! We have grommets. I did these yesterday on my lunch break at the office. Amazing how much easier and less stressful it is to set in grommets in the air conditioning when you're not worried about disturbing people. Instead of taking me a full hour, it only took me 20 minutes and I didn't sweat a single drop. Whew! I mean, the people downstairs might have alerted maintenance because they thought something was breaking in my office, but hey, who cares about them? They're not my neighbors. Now that the back closure is together, let's work on the front. The hook part of the bust gets inserted into the right side by sewing the fashion fabric to the lining with openings for the hooks. Then you flip wrong sides together and pin along the edge of the bust in prep for sewing. This is the stressful bit. Use a zipper foot. Don't let the needle break. Don't let the needle break. Don't let the needle break. At this point, I'm literally hand cranking it. Phew, crisis averted. With that done, now we can start sewing the rest of the boning channels. To get the cleanest curve, I've opted here to use my mock-up to transfer the boning channels onto the real side front piece. Transfer paper's a little too chonky. Note that I'm using friction pens on the inner lining, but using water-soluble pens on the fashion fabric. I prefer to use external channels for steel on the inside of the inner lining so they aren't visible at all from the front, but that's a personal preference. Once those are all sewn, then you can go back and sew the set-in channels. Make sure you always sew in the same direction. Don't flip your piece over or you'll get wrinkles. Everything is basted together, and before we can try it on, we need to lace it. I prefer the dual strand method. The top and bottom will be laced separately from top to waist and bottom to waist. This is similar to the bunny ear method, but it gives more control. I've never been able to just pull the laces and have everything close evenly. I suspect it's because my torso is just so highly corsetable, but in any case, this is my preferred method, but you should use whatever method you prefer. Before I try this on, real quick, remember, it's not okay to discuss my body size or anyone else's body size. Period. End of story. The only body it's appropriate for you to discuss is your own, whether it's a criticism or a compliment. I wish I didn't have to say this again, because 99% of you are awesome and know better, but like the current state of the world today, the 1%'s gotta ruin it for the rest of us. This is technically my second try on, but it's actually my first because the first time I had seams pop before I even put it on and it was a disaster. I am getting quite a bit of wrinkling still on here. I've talked about this in the other video, but I'm gonna do a little bit of fiddling in the back to get this to fix. I think I'm gonna add one more piece of boning in this channel here, just because I think that'll help it out a lot. But otherwise, this is pretty comfortable. I've been wearing it for about an hour. So let's move on to the next step. First thing we need to do is fix the wacko grain happening in the back. I talked about this in the other video, but in my hurry to set the grommets, I skewed the whole piece slightly. You can see in this shot how crooked they are. And now my boning channels in the back are all off grain. So I machine basted along the herringbone of the coutil and am now redoing all of these boning channels along that actual straight grain line. And my sole dies just a little bit more. Somehow the distance is different, but at this point, I CBF. Resewn. Now we baste this back together. Time for synthetic web. That's right, we're using the good stuff. What and how? Bye-bye. Snip. 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 If you're enjoying this video or finding it helpful, please consider hitting the like button and saying snip to my Lou in the comments. Why did I go all country with that? I don't know. And thank you to all of my supporters over on Ko-fi, my absolute all-stars. If you want to help the channel out and have the means to contribute, I've linked to my page down below. All right, so a significantly less amount of wrinkling now that we have a little bit more space. However, I do feel less supported, especially in the bust. Like, I can tug it up, which is not good. That confirms to me that we're definitely gonna have to take it in. Normally you would take it in at the side seam here, but I have one boning channel right here and one boning channel right here, and that is a problem. Actually, I've just realized that's gonna be a problem anyway, because we're gonna have to put a boning channel in here with the tape. That sucks because I just replaced that one on the back. Why didn't I think of that before? We'll start with 1/8 of an inch on this seam here where the side front meets the side back. And then we'll also take it in 1/8 of an inch here at the side. That will equal to a full inch all the way around. So let's test that out. Move those boning channels again and try not to pull my hair out in the process. Okay, now we can finally start tweaking. So good news and bad news. The good news, I've got a lacing gap that I'm happy with. Bad news, I'm having a little bit of back pain now. I loosened the laces a little bit. That has helped, but it has not fully helped. And also, this is pushing the girls up a little bit, which is not good. That's not what we want. We don't want it to go up and back. We want it to go out. You can see it better when I'm standing this way. So from here, we have to make small changes, test it, then make more changes and test it. Also, I need to adjust my straps. Let's get the bust where we want. That might help with the posture, or we're gonna have to do more tweaks. We'll see. That helped significantly. I'm feeling a lot less back pain. I still have a little bit of a flattened bust. I really need to let it out right in this portion here or this portion here. Unfortunately, there's not a seam there, and I don't want to cut a seam in this almost together corset. So I'm also getting this kind of bulging right here in the back. You can see it better on this side. I'm gonna take that in about 3/4 of an inch on both sides, and then we'll test it out and see how I'm feeling after that. All right, I've been wearing this for about an hour and a half. I made a couple of tweaks off camera. I took it in back here like I said I was going to. I also ended up letting out the seam that I originally took in because that was part of the reason why my bust was getting compressed. I also pulled it down a little bit, and now, sorry about my laundry machine. I hope it's not too loud. Are you done? Nope. It's not perfect. Anyway, what I'm trying to say, while I keep getting so rudely interrupted, is that I think it's good to sew. Time for the Dremel. I'm using the red threaded synthetic whalebone bit for this, and let me tell you, it makes it so much easier. But even more than sandpaper, you really need to protect your face because the plastic dust goes everywhere. That was a little out of order. Usually I don't like to finish sanding all of the boning channels in until all of the fitting has been done, but yesterday it was just so nice outside. It was only 93 degrees at 3 p.m., which is unheard of for Texas in July. And since that's the part that I've been dreading the most, the fact that I was able to knock it out, the weather wasn't bad, I didn't have to get up early to do it, it's a huge load off of my mind. Hopefully the height is okay and I don't have to make any more adjustments. So with that, now we can actually sew the corset together. To account for fabric relaxing, I'm going to sew the real seams just slightly to the inside of the basted seams. Now we rip and press. Finally, it's time to cut off the seam allowances on the tops and bottoms in prep for binding. Next, we need to sew external boning channels on all of the seams. I hate this part because it's so fiddly. You can opt to sew the tape through all layers and have it show on the other side, but I prefer to leave it loose along the seam allowances, which is a pain in the butt to sew. Everything is fully contained. I've had this on for about an hour and a half. I've been sitting at my desk for the majority of it without any discomfort. So I can finally conclude that everything is good, everything is ready. Now let's bind the top and bottom edge. Next, you need to add the waist tape. This is another one of those fiddly but necessary tasks. This helps stabilize the corset at the waist and prevent it from stretching out. You want to make sure you're stretching the corset over something round like your thigh when sewing this so it has enough give on your body. It is time, my friends. Time to add some hip padding. Typical Edwardian hip pads are little cushions that wrap around your back to the hips, much like a flatter version of an 18th century bum pad. I only need a little bit of padding in the hips, and because of my sway back, I don't need any padding in the back. So instead, I've decided to make little pads, kind of like shoulder pads, to put into the hips of the corset. Oh, and also, bust improvers were used copiously in this period because the proportions were what mattered. So normally you would not make these smaller, you would just put bust improvers in there. That's the last thing I need. But I've linked to both a free hip pad and a low-cost bust improver pattern in the description, along with all my other resources for you. After tracing the inside of my corset out onto a sheet of paper, I realized it really looks like Darth Vader's helmet. So this is not so much making a corset hip pad as it is turning Darth Vader's face into a potato. This is cotton batting. We'll start by cutting out one Darth Vader. Then we will cut out sequential pieces of batting, reducing the width at the sides, but keeping the length in the center. Vader, 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 potato, spuddy, and full-on potato. We're going to place the whole thing in this hip area. See how it rounds nicely? 2 more Vader heads, this time in scrap muslin. I am your tater. Note the pleat at the top. The pad wasn't quite thick enough, so I added a second layer of the spuddy size and the second Vader size. You want to make sure all your pieces are nice and even before stuffing Vader's face with potatoes. Then it's just a matter of closing up the bottom and hand stitching it closed. What do you think? Should I make this into a pattern for my Ko-fi shop? And now we get to the fun part, decorating. First thing you want to do is mark the bottom of your boning. My flossing will be 1.5 inches tall, so we'll mark that next. Hey, it's a derpy smiley face. Then we'll make 1/4 inch marks down to the bottom so we know where our needle is going. There are a lot of different ways to floss a corset. I've opted here for something fairly simple since I have a lot of boning and I'm worried more complicated designs would be busy. For this design, go up through the center and into the first dot. Then make another line down to the center just above that point and landing slightly on the other side of your first stitch. Repeat for the other side. Then move up a space and repeat the entire process again. Okay, so we're going to continue this pattern, except we're only going to do 1 stitch per mark, starting with the 3rd mark, moving up to the top. Make sure you pass your thread inside the corset instead of over the back of the coutil, since friction is not your friend. Know that the order you cross your threads matters, which I learned the hard way when I started doing this without practicing first. After several false starts, I pulled it all out and made a little sampler on one of my mock-up pieces until I found the pattern I liked the most. Here's what it looks like when it's done. Now that we've got all of the flossing on the bottom done, we need to worry about the top. The first thing I've done, because this is going to be covered in lace, is secure the very top of the boning with some back stitches. Voila. I used embroidery floss very close to the color of the corset. I tried regular thread first and it wasn't very secure, so I opted for the embroidery floss. Guess what? Now it's time to add the lace. Yay! I got this beautiful Venice lace remnant from Farmhouse Fabrics. The center front flossing is going to be overcomplicated. We'll start with this dark teal color. For this one, start in the corner, not in the center, and go up to the first mark. Then up to the next mark, down to the corner once more. Next, switch to pale aqua and continue the pattern. Then repeat with the white. Here's the trickier bit. Back to the teal, we're going to start on the other side. It's the same design, but instead of inserting the needle straight into our marks, we're going to weave it over, under through all the other threads until we reach the other side. Then go back the other way. It's kind of fiddly. Rinse, wash, repeat. Here's what it looks like when it's finished. This took me 3 whole months to make. But y'all, I am so happy with the way it turned out. It's so floofy and ridiculous. Now I can get started on the ball gown. I am determined to take my time with that and not rush. So you won't see those videos until probably right before or even after the ball itself. But if you want to see updates, make sure you're following me over on Instagram because I'm already posting part of my process over there. And if you missed the dedicated fitting video for this corset, I'd love for you to check it out. Thanks for watching. I love y'all, and I'll catch you in the next video.